Good evening, everybody. A very warm welcome here at Pakhuis de Zwijger for the 4th edition of Future Cities. You've seen some very inspiring visual content already. The multimedia project focusing on 5 urban areas outside of Europe. And tonight we'll take a closer look at Addis Ababa, the thriving capital of Ethiopia, and especially its music scene that is quite happening. So be ready to be amazed. We'll have some wonderful content tonight. There will be a performance, singing performance. There will be more visual content, of course. There'll be presentations, panel discussions. And if you're a regular here at Pakhuis de Zwijger, you know that we value your content and your interaction a lot. So if you feel like sharing insights or asking questions, please do. If you raise your hand, I'll come to you with the microphone and we'll make sure you are heard by everybody and we'll have that discussion. Let's see who is in the lineup tonight, because I think we have a wonderful lineup. Menyishu is with us. She was born in Ethiopia. She started her her artistic career in Addis Ababa when she was around 17, I think. 14 already. You're almost a senior then, while you're still so young. As a singer, as a dancer, as a producer. And she moved to Belgium in the late 90s and later, a few years later, to the Netherlands, where she's very successful as a performer, singer and dancer, among various other specializations. With us tonight as well is Jan Abink. He's an anthropologist and historian and an expert on everything that's happening in the Horn of Africa from a politics and a cultural point of view. At the moment he is a professor at the University of Leiden and his specialization there is politics and governance. And with us, of course, tonight are the initiators of this wonderful project, Yvonne Brandwijk and Stephanie Bakker. Yvonne Brandwijk is the photographer, Stephanie Bakker is the journalist, and they started this project. I'm just curious to know who joined us earlier in a Future Cities evening. Just shouting out loud, what cities have you visited already? Kinshasa? Yeah? You really are a regular.
Yeah, but she's my wife. So.
Okay. It sounds.
Yeah, sorry.
You don't look like you have to go. You look like you're enjoying it.
No, really enjoying it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have traveling plans yourselves, going to any of the cities, or you've been there maybe already?
Yeah, I've been to Medellin, but not to Lima as well. But it was quite a long time ago. So, but not to Yangon or Lima, or Addis Ababa.
Anyone else would like to reflect on the previous evenings he or she has visited? There's plenty of room later on tonight, as I said. I would like to invite Yvonne and Stephanie on stage. Yvonne Bakker and Yvonne Brandwijk. Give them a big hand. Here you go, ladies. Welcome. Well, 4th time on stage, right?
Yes.
5 cities, is it? Yes, it is now. 5 cities, 4 evenings. It's the last one. We reflect on the entire series at the end of the evening. But are you looking forward tonight? What do you hope that will come out of tonight? Yvonne or Stephanie?
What we hope for is, what we're aiming for with this project is to transmit the energy and the knowledge, the inspiration from these cities. Yeah. So that's also what I'm aiming for tonight, to show what also is going on in Addis Ababa, because I think a lot of the cities we have as subject cities are cities that are not well known, or people have another perspective on these cities.
How did you select these cities?
What we did, all these cities are in McKinsey projections. They have rankings of cities of the future.
The consultancy firm McKinsey, right?
Yeah. They have a whole department focused on cities, as cities are hot. The 21st century is the century of cities, of urbanization. I think in 2050, 70% of all the people in the world are living in cities. So it's a hot topic. So they have a whole department focused on city development.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's mostly about surprise. So we are very surprised to see these cities in this list. Yeah. Because normally we think it's more, they in the news more negative. And we were surprised that it's a rising city and it's a future city. Yeah. So we wanted to show, and we would like to show what is going on as well.
Yeah, because the underlying question of the project is what can we learn from cities outside Europe, right?
Yes, I think that's the most interesting question you can ask yourself. What can we learn? What can I learn from this place, from these people?
Yeah. And what do you focus on? Because there's plenty of media covering the negative side, or the problems, or the challenges. If you frame it a bit more positively, what is your angle if you go to a city like one of the cities like these?
What we do in all these cities, we look for what we call the soul of the city, and that's actually a term stolen from one of our protagonists, one from Yangon. He told us the mood of the people is the soul of the city, and then we thought, wow, this is what we are looking for, because we said all the time that we were looking for what's in the DNA of the people, what makes a city authentic, what are people really good in, and to address the positive development in the city.
Yeah, the positive. We want to show the entire story, and not only the. And if you start with the strength, then of course you will come to the problem. Yeah. But if you start with the problem, you never come to the strength.
Nice angle, yes. Well, we'll talk about your approach a little bit more in depth later on. Final question for now is, what is the multimedia about this project? There's plenty of media going on. Can you reflect on that shortly?
The multimedia is that we, of course, it starts always when the city is finished. It starts in an article in the newspaper. And at the same time, we launch a web doc, so you can see it on futurecities.nl. And we have the evening in Pakhuis Zwijger, but we also, what we did is that we had, for example, exhibition, and we brought some of the protagonists to the exhibition.
Okay.
So in that way.
Sounds pretty multi to me. You're going to give a presentation. There's going to be lots of inspiring content, and then there's plenty of room to ask them more questions about how you approach this project. Okay?
Thank you.
Floor is yours.
You.
I'll pour you some drinks and.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. We would like to start with an. Well, actually, we haven't seen the Addis Ababa. It's a clip that we want to transmit the energy of this city by images and by also a composed sound for this city. Maybe we can start with that one. Okay, and so we have done this for every city, and it's also how our web doc starts. It's just to bring some of the energy, and we invite people that they become enthusiastic and that they would like to go further in the web doc. And what I would like to do now, I would like to give you a short presentation. It takes about 4 minutes. Of some visual of images with the sounds of this city, and after that, Stephanie will go a little bit deeper about the subject.
Okay, after this quick trip through Addis, I would like to tell you a story. And it's the story of Malaku Belai, a world-famous dancer and a cultural entrepreneur. And through his story, I will give you an idea of what's going on in Addis, Ethiopia's capital, and one of the fastest changing cities in the world. I've never been to a city where there are so many construction sites, and on the other hand, so many people are living on the streets. When we woke up early, because the light was good for shooting, we saw them sleeping on the street in rows. But Malaku Belai, before we left, we did a lot of research, for sure. And someone who's a music expert here in Amsterdam already told us, you have to go and see Malaku Belai dancing, because that's impressive. So already the first night that we were in Addis Ababa, we went to his club, Fendika. And we were lucky that he was performing with his Ethio color band, which is the house band, and Malaku Belai is the band leader. And we had an exceptional night and saw a performance we never saw before. The Ethio color band, you see them here performing, and Malaku Belai is the guy in black with a black T-shirt. And they are a band of 13 people, musicians and dancers, between 17 and 70. And they play jazz and rock on traditional instruments. And they mix it with tribal dances and Ethiopian songs from the 60s and the 70s. And at first we thought, well, this is kind of traditional. And but when we looked around, Fendika was packed with young people, and everybody was very much involved with their own music, their own food, and their own homemade honey wine. And Malaku that night was too busy to talk with us because he was performing, and he introduced us to one of his young dancers, Ayen. And Ayen came to Addis Ababa because he wanted to be a dancer. He lived with his family in northern Ethiopia. He worked on a farm, never went to school. He couldn't read or write before he came to Addis. And he told us about the Fendika family that he was part of since he came to Addis. And the Fendika family consists of 12 young musicians and dancers, and they all live under the bar in the club. Malaku gives them accommodation. He offers them work in the club and send them to school. He opens a savings account for them. And Ayen told us that he uses the saving accounts to save his salary and tips he gets from the audience to move towards independent life. And that's not that easy in Addis, because renting an apartment is very expensive. And the government, there is social housing. They are building flats everywhere on the edges of the city. But the last years, the costs have gone up very much, and according to statistics of the UN, at least one fifth of the inhabitants of Addis Ababa cannot afford even the smallest apartment. So they end up on the streets or in one of the slums, or under the bar in Fendika. And it was never the intention of Malaku Belai to start a social project, but it just happened. He had a lot of young dancers and musicians applying for a job at his club, and he saw that they were very talented and had nowhere to go. And he understood he understood their pain, because he had been living on the streets as well. He was a street kid for quite a long time, and he started dancing in Fendika and slept under the bar for 7 years as well. And until he was discovered by the Alliance Française, and they invited him to go to Paris and to go to Djibouti to perform And from that moment on, he had an international career. He traveled all around the world, and he worked with flamenco singers, with hip hoppers, with the Dutch punk band DX. He performed a couple of times as well here in the Netherlands, and he's traveling all over the world, also with Ethiocolor. In the meantime, kids like Ayen are waiting for their big break. And he told us, I think one day he will take me abroad. I hope so. So, let me see. Yeah, we've been twice to Addis, and we went often to Fendika. Not only because we like the Fendika family, but because Malaku has a band. Every single night, 7 days a week. And 7 days a week, Fendika is packed with people. And these bands do something special. They mix traditional Ethiopian music with modern music styles, like hip-hop, jazz, soul. And that gives a very unique sound. And one night, I talked to Abi Woldemariam. That's not well pronounced, I think. But he's the director of Jazamba School and a famous pianist as well. And he told me, with this sound, I think the Ethiopian musicians will conquer the world. And during the time that we were in Addis, we spoke to a lot of musicians and dancers and performers, producers, and they all had the same dream, to conquer the world with this unique Ethiopian sound. And I think all over the world, musicians and bands are dreaming of becoming famous. But Addis has something special because it was once one of the leading music cities in the world. And what's happening now is considered as a renaissance. Because during the era of Emperor Haile Selassie, almost every imperial institution had its own orchestra. The police had its own band, the army had its own band, the bodyguards of the emperor had a band, and a lot of the famous musicians and a lot of star vocalists were singing in these bands, and they grew up in these bands. And Ethiopian music, we know right now, the music from Mulatu Astatke, for instance. You saw him already in the clip and in the slideshow performing, and you heard him playing. They are quite famous, and that's the music we know from Ethiopia, and that comes from the 60s and the 70s. But then a regime came. Mengistu killed the music scene. He installed a curfew, censorship, and the musicians were arrested. They fled to foreign countries. And for 18 years, there was not a single night of nightlife in Addis Ababa. And now musicians are coming back for already 10 or 15 years. And finally, Addis has its swing back. And in the middle of this emerging music scene is Fendika. Quite a special nightclub, as you can see. It's on the outside is like the ramshackled houses that are around it, and on the inside it's more like a Bedouin tent, I think. And at daylight, when we came, because the first time we visited Fendika at night, and then we came back to interview Malaku and to know more about the family living there, we saw how it was located between ramshackled houses without access to basic facilities. And I think more or less 80% of the inner city of Addis Ababa is like this. But it's demolished in a very quick pace because in 2025, Ethiopia wants to become a middle-income country, and the government wants a capital city that reflects that ambition. So they're building high-rises everywhere, and the people living in these houses have to move to the edges of the city. And if they cannot afford it, they have to move to another place where they in these kind of houses, and they have to move on again because they are going to demolish as well. And Melaku told us that in his neighborhood, Kazanches, before there were 17 clubs like this, and now only Fendika survived. And also Fendika is on the list to be demolished. And 4 years ago, he saved the club by leasing the land from the government. He paid $2,000 and he raised it with a crowdfunding campaign, and because he has a big international network, because he has been touring around. And now a new challenge came up because the government wants Kazanches to be a high-rise zone. And if Melaku is not able to build a tower of 8 floors, he has to move as well. And the club will be demolished. So maybe this is a little bit confusing, and it has everything to do with the land rights in Addis and in Ethiopia, because all the land belongs to the government. That's still a legacy of the socialist regime. And government rents out land to investors. And they do it a lot. Almost 2.5 million hectares in the whole country is rent out to investors, foreign investors mostly. And people in the city and also in the countryside have to move from land they are living on for hundreds of years, and they are farming there. And because of that, there have been a lot of protests the last years in the country. Shall we show the video? Yes, I think that's a good idea. We have a short video portrait of Melaku, and there he will see more about the story.
I'm organizing as much I can to welcome, to give the space for creativity. And I start dynamically, like jazz and mix with tradition. I invite from countryside, and also poetry and painting, gallery, and panel discussion of like folklore, or very vibrant, this kind of venue in Fendika. And I'm traveling all over the world with my profession. Still, I'm traditional Ethiopian traditional dancer, but it's modern and lively. And I'm always dancing. In every wedding, and I listen to music, and I mean, always you can find me in the middle. And then so this is my life. So whatever challenging in my life, I never change my talent. Like this venue in this area called Kazanches, around 17 venue. Because of development, all that go on now. Only Fendika survive. You can see a lot of workers, all the things they educate here, they eating here, they sleeping here. All the life I control, almost. And also some waiters on some like things, they become professional dancers. They go with me in America, in Europe. I don't accept just to they working here and living here. But when I see them problems, they don't have house. They don't have family here. So I know the pain. I'm a street children before also. In Fendika I start work. So after I start, I ask permission to sleep here. I sleep 7 years under the bar. Imagine these old people, I use it now. I work, employee with me. Maybe when there is no this place, they go to run away by boat and dying in the sea. So it's nice to keep it young people to support in home. Otherwise become for everybody's problem all over the world, immigrant. the government, you don't need now this place. They need 8th floor to build. When I don't do what the government proposed me, I can't live here. So to build 8th floor, you can imagine. Now I need 3 million euro to build. Still that's the idea. Not only for Ethiopia, it's for Africa and for all over, for the world.
Yeah. So what we're aiming for, I already told you that with this project we want to share the stories behind the statistics of urbanization and growth. And what we saw in in the other 4 cities, because Addis is the 5th city we're launching, is that the energy you feel in the city is comparable with the statistics. So when there's a lot of economic growth, there's a lot of hope. And in Addis, there's a lot of economic growth, but there's not so much hope. There's a lot of energy that it is there, but the people are not that positive. They are a little bit, because there's a lot of, things going on that are not so very good as well. So we were discussing with each other and also with the people we met in Ethiopia, is Ethiopia a future city then? And Ethiopians say, of course it is, and especially when it comes to culture, because they might not have so much faith in the government. Their faith in themselves is unshakable. I've never met people that are so proud of their culture and so and people that believe in themselves so much. So despite of clubs being demolished, despite of high taxes on instruments and equipment from foreign countries, and despite of censorship, they still believe in their dream. And the dream of the musicians is to conquer the world with their unique Ethiopian sound. And also Malaku is convinced that he comes up with a plan to save his club. And the last day that we were in Addis, he came in with a Chinese investor. And the Chinese investor really wanted to do business in Addis. And he is not allowed as a foreigner to own a property. So Malaku wanted to make a deal with him that the Chinese would pay the costs for the tower, the $3 million to build the tower. And he can use the upper floors of the building for his business. And the lower floors are for Malaku's cultural center. And he has plans to open a professional recording studio. He wants to have a cultural library. He wants to have a workshop space, a place where foreign musicians can come to when they are in Addis. So he has a lot of plans. And we will see in the future, I think. And what a good thing is that he wants to save Fendika as it is right now. So he wants to build the tower behind the nightclub to save the club for what it is now as a memory and as a cultural heritage as well. And in our web doc, there are more protagonists to meet, and there's also a lot of background information on economic and political and social development in Addis. So welcome to visit the web documentary afterwards.
Stephanie, Yvonne, thanks a lot. Yes, please give him a big hand. You'll be back on stage talking about a bit more of the background of the project, because I'm just wondering who has ever been in Addis Ababa, just by raise of hands. Anyone like to share insights of your visit, maybe? You look like a traveler.
I'm not a traveler at all.
No. You have been in Addis Ababa.
I just joined a group and went to Addis Ababa.
Do you recognize some of the things that have been said about the characteristics of the city?
Yeah, I do recognize a lot. I mean, the things she's talking about, I think it's true. I'm curious
I'm happy to hear that.
about the Chinese investments. I mean, can you make such a deal with a Chinese investor to build this building where you're not allowed to build as an outsider? I mean, how does
you're not allowed to own the property, but Malaku owns the property then. How we will going to use to organize it I'm not completely sure about that, but he looked convinced, and the Chinese looked convinced as well. And
Malaku looked very happy with that. I don't think it works, but yeah.
I'm wondering if people with an Ethiopian background in the hall maybe as well with us.
Yes.
Just curious for some reflections. Of course, we have the wonderful performance of Minyeshu later on. We're going to hear you. But people who maybe come from Addis Ababa. I see people pointing at each other. Well, if you're not comfortable, yeah, hi.
Yeah, I'm not from Ethiopia, of course, but I've been coming there for 6 years, and I've seen the developments you highlight. And 6 years ago there were barely any high rises. Now it's really unrecognizable. Every time I'm there, like every 6 months, I barely recognize the street I'm in.
And just curious, what do you do when you're there?
I'm an entrepreneur, and I developed a new injera stove. So that's the food that people eat there. And I developed a new stove for energy efficient stove to bake the staple food of the country.
Africa Clean Energy?
Well, I don't think my microphone is on.
The yellow one.
I also don't. Yes. What I was surprised about is we work with people there, locals, and we call them a fixer. And he said every time when he was visiting his parents, he didn't know the way. He didn't know how to get to the house of his parents because every time it was changed.
Streets actually change.
It goes so extremely fast.
Mm-hmm.
But what surprised me as well, it took us a few days. Like you see everywhere, you see construction. But you don't hear construction. If construction like that is happening in Amsterdam, it must be so loud. It must be you don't want to be in the city. You can't sleep. There, it's like how come? How is that possible? And then I noticed that you didn't have the big, I have no idea how you call it, cranes.
Mm-hmm.
They do it everything by hand.
Okay.
A little elevators. So
that's a big question for tonight. How did you do it?
Work.
Yeah. Mysteries. But there's the mister who's going to answer all these mysteries. Hi.
I'm from Ethiopia, but I think the sound thing is probably I have a bit of an explanation for that. That is what she said is a little bit true. But the other thing is the city is already very loud that you don't recognize it because.
So yeah, but we record sounds, and then at home you must hear it. But we hear a lot of quotes.
Didn't you get like, for example, the first day so when I go from here, I live now here.
Yes.
But when I go there, I can't sleep for a couple of days because it's so loud. It's a lot of noise.
Yeah, you must be
the
right.
Church, the mosques by themselves, they're just making noise every time. So sometimes you don't recognize the noise because you get just
but we
used
have
to
been
that.
traveling, like for example, to Yangon for the same project, and that's 24 hours 7. And if you're in a hotel next door, you really can't sleep. And that I didn't. The cranes, I was missing the cranes, and if you saw them, it was always by Chinese then. Okay. Yes.
Just for a short reflection on the music scene, do you have any connection with the music scene in Addis Ababa, maybe?
No, I'm not really from Addis. I've lived in Addis Ababa for a few months, but that's a long time ago. I know Malaku, but mainly I know him in Amsterdam. But I do know, so it's a little bit strange, but I know him here because he had been performing here. I do know, I just follow because I have friends, and I also follow about developments in Ethiopia, so I do know about the music scene that is coming back. But not really quite in-depth understanding of the music culture there.
No problem. Hi.
I have a question. Perhaps it's a stupid question, but I learned that stupid questions are quite good sometimes. That when it's going so fast, this building of these constructions, and most people don't have the money to pay, who are living in those constructions? They're
building a lot of banks, a lot of hotels, a lot of offices. Addis Ababa is the diplomatic capital of Africa, of the region. It's the place where the African Union is, because it has never been colonized. And somebody told me that Addis Ababa has almost as much embassies as New York has. So that's why there are a lot of conferences going on all the time. And the neighborhood where Vendika is packed with hotels. Yeah, so they're building more and more, and they are still all full.
Okay. Let's keep it at that for the moment. I'm really curious for our performance. So I'd like to invite on stage Minishu. Give her a big hand. You've already tested. Can I invite you this is your microphone. You've already tested it. I'm just curious. Do you feel?
Hello.
Hi. Good that you're here. Happy that you're here. Do you feel like you're part of that overall plan of Ethiopian music conquering the world? Do you feel like you're doing that tonight? Or is it really abracadabra to you? You're just a good artist performing the music you make.
The music I do.
Yeah. But do you feel like you're part of an overall movement that Ethiopian music is about to conquer the world?
Yes, in my way. The songs I write or I compose based on those traditional Ethiopian songs or styles. We have more than 80 different ethnic groups in Ethiopia. Each group has own dance rhythms, melody, and also even the costumes, even the hairstyles. So most of us, we recognize by melody which the song which side from Ethiopia. So in my music, that's what I'm doing. That's also how I grew up in a cultural music in a national theater. Okay. So when I came here, I feel also responsible, and I feel also that's what I'm supposed to do, and that's what I am doing.
Wonderful. Happy that you're here. You're going to sing two songs, right?
Yes.
Can you tell a bit about the background of these songs?
The first one I was thinking, the very important song. It's like 15 years ago. Actually, I'm now 22 years in Europe. I'm living. So 15 years ago, it was in winter, and I was sitting on the table, a dining table, and it was really cold, and it's quiet on the street. And I was just going with my thoughts to my country and how it could be. And I was thinking, what am I doing here? And it's cold and it's quiet, and I'm alone at that time. So I start writing about life, talking to the life. Especially that time, because you miss so much social life, what you have with your neighbors. For us, as neighbors means family. It's not like neighbors. Even sometimes you don't say hello, you just walk. But even my parents who raised me were neighbors for my biology family. So they were just neighbors, but when my biology mother, when she was very young, when she left, so they took me and raised me. They are my family. So this is how our culture is. Okay. So that's why I sang the first, this song, Nuro means life. And the second song is nice, also from the central Ethiopia, Gurage. But I would like to involve you all, and that we sing together, and that we can a little bit have experience the movement and the singing part.
Okay. Becoming more curious.
Yes.
Give a big hand. Me Issue for 2 songs.
Thank you so much. Nuro. Ay nuro, nuro ndi noral. Mechal berib ገብቶ ጊዜው የሚገፋው እንዲሁን ብዬ ኑሮዬን በገፋው አቃተኝ ራቀብኝ እስከ መቼስ ተስፋ አቶ ኑሮ አለቃ ሆንክብኝ ተቆጣጥራ ካሌን ተንሰራፋህብኝ እስከማሸንፍ ጊዜው ላንተ ሆኗል እግዜር ባለ ጊዜ ለኔም ቀኑ ያልፋል ያልኩኝ እስኪ ላስታምው ድህነት መቸገር እንዲህ ካረገዝው አይ ኑሮ ወይ ኑሮ ኖሮ እንዲኖሮ መቻል በልብ ገብቶ ጊዜው የሚገፋው እስኪ ይሁን ብዬ ኑሮዬን በገፋው አቃተኝ ራቀብኝ እስከ መቼስ ተስፋ ለሰው የማልነግረው ስንት ነገር ቻልኩት መንገድ ዳገት ሆነና አቃተኝ ራቀብኝ ተረታው መሰለኝ ጌታ ብርታት ስጠኝ ጌታ ብርታት ስጠኝ ከጎኔ ሁንልኝ Thank you so much. Without instrument. But now you are my instrument. So, first I will teach you how to sing the melody line. And then after that, we will stand up, everybody. I will show you how to move. It's very easy. It is very easy. Because, you know, we have another dance, like skista, what everybody knows how to move dance. Yeah, that's a shoulder dance, which is not really easy. I mean, you can also make it easy with, you know, this. But I choose which is, you know, comfortable and recognizable. It's like kind of Irish dance. Do you know how it is? You remember how it is? You know? But the Irish one are very... Can you help me with the word? Straight. So, but with us, you know, this is like this. But with us is no. You just put here, outside, and you smile and feel sexy and beautiful and elegant. Our dances are most of the time are elegant. So we will do all that with you guys. Okay. Hebo, 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 hebo. Now you. Hebo, 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 hebo. 7. But don't count it, just do it by feeling, because we do it by feeling. We never count. We don't have like 4, 4, 4, or, you know. So, hebo, 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 hebo. Hebo, 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 hebo. Hebo, you know? The end is a little bit different. Yeah, just 2 times. Hebo, 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 hebo. Hebo, 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 hebo. Yeah? Did you eat already? So, it can be better. Hebo, 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 hebo. Hebo, 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 hebo. Okay, maybe stand up. Maybe it's better. It will sound better. So, of course, with rhythm, the most powerful tribe, they are hard worker people, Gurage people, and the dances as well. The first one, you can hear me, yeah? You don't need that. So, close, open, the same time, everything, you know. Now move. Back. Now that elegant. Yes. Move. Body. And we can put, you know, the feet up like up. Yes. That's good. Okay. The next one is the Irish one. The Irish one. So I have to put my dress like this to show you. You remember this? Just try. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Up, up. Now we're singing. Okay. Hebo, 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 hebo. Hebo, 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 hebo. Hebo, 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 hebo. Hebo, 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 hebo. Keep singing. Hebo, 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 hebo. ድምፅ የጠፋው በደና እናፍቃለው ፍቅሬና እንድትበርፍ በደና አሳይሃለው ፍቅሬና ፋስተር የጠፋው በደና እናፍቃለው ገና ትሽሸዲ በደና አሳይሃለው ገና ትንተፍሮ ሄቦ ሄቦ ወዴት ይሸሻል ሄቦ ተንጉዳርጎ ሄቦ ሄቦ ይሸመጠጣ ሄቦ 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 ድምፅ የጠፋው በደና እናፍቃለው ፍቅሬና አትሽሸዲ በደና አሳይሃለው ሁሉና ድምፅ የጠፋው በደና እናፍቃለው ፍቅሬና አትሽሸዲ በገና Asayi hale wigena, begena, begena. Hebo, 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 hebo. Faster. Hebo.
Minyeshu, ladies and gentlemen. Wonderful. Thanks a lot. Thanks. You'll be right back on stage after a while. So please take a seat. No, please take a seat. But thanks for now. I'd like to invite back on stage Yvonne and Stephanie. Microphones are over there. A bit more in depth about the Future Cities project. You both have a microphone, if that's correct? Yes. Yeah. Because you talked about your approach, the wonderful stuff you've seen in Addis Ababa. I'm wondering, these characters play a vital role. They really tell your story. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How do you meet them?
Shall I do the first one? Because you have been dancing and I've been recording. It was the other way around, I think. The thing is that the first time when we went to Kinshasa, the first city, we thought, we're going to do the research in the Netherlands, and then we have all the appointments made, and but it didn't work out that way. We find almost all our main characters on the spot, because they, a lot of them have never been interviewed before. They are... Mm-hmm. Normal people.
But where do you find them? On the streets?
What we do is we try to be part of a scene as soon as possible.
With a theme.
Okay.
Every city comes with a theme. And from this theme, we look for people. We go, for example, Kinshasa is about fashion. Mm-hmm. So when we arrived there, of course, we had some appointments with a Dutch fashion company. But we go just to a fashion show. And there you see the most interesting people. You can meet them there. Okay. That's how we found Lewison, for example, one of our protagonists. Yeah. And that's how we every time do it. If you work from a theme, you make in that way the city a bit smaller.
And the theme is selected before you go there. That's really the research part. So you have the city, you have the theme, and there you make sure you get into that scene around that theme, and there you meet your characters.
Yeah, and that's the way we look for this theme, because we're looking for the soul of the city. So what is so unique on this with this city? What is so special about the people? What is in how Stephanie always says it very nicely, what's in the DNA of the people? Mm-hmm.
How do you know you're on the right track? Because you've selected the theme beforehand.
We always think we're on the wrong track the first 2 days, I think.
Yeah. Now, the first 2 days we are very convinced, and then comes a time, and mostly it's the third day, that we think, oh my God, we are on the wrong track. And in Lima, we didn't have that, because everybody was so convinced about gastronomy, and gastronomy in Lima is everywhere. Mm-hmm. And it even causes social change already. So they are a little bit ahead of the other cities, I think. Mm-hmm. They even want a chef as a president. So there we were very much convinced that we were on the right track. In Kinshasa, the thing is that there's a lot of poverty as well in Kinshasa. And then you raise the question, how can a city where there's so much poverty, how can fashion be so important? And then you come to that it has always been in the DNA of the people, that Africa has always been looking at Kinshasa for the latest fashion trends. And what you see is that when economy grows, when the politics are a little bit more stable, when there's more freedom, talents people have always had suddenly start to flourish. And then that causes change sometimes, as we saw in Lima already.
Medellin, what was that city like? Because we've not heard a lot about that already. You've talked about Kinshasa, Lima.
Well, we went to Medellin with the idea it will be the Silicon Valley of South America. And when we arrived, we had to change it a little bit. It's still about technology, and we call it the smartest city of Latin America. But it was more that we were not impressed about the high tech. We were more impressed that they put technology into making a social change, and we call it a social innovation instead of like a high tech.
If you look at the question underneath the project, is what can we learn from cities outside of Europe? Then the obvious question from my side is, what have you learned?
What I learned is that in every place there are two sides of the story. There are things going wrong, but there's always hope, and there's always resilience, and there's always human connection. And what I learned that I want to share these stories as well, because these stories are often forgotten. And to give a more balanced view of the world, you have to tell these stories as well. And that's what I learned as a journalist, because we are raised as journalists that good news is no news. But good news is news. It gives you a more balanced view of the world. And when you portray the people like we do, you come to the challenges in their lives as well.
On a very practical level, are there also lessons to be learned for average people living in any city in the Netherlands, for instance, or in Western Europe?
Well, there are many. You want examples? You learn so much. Of course, when you travel, you learn already a lot. It makes your life richer. The energy that I feel what I felt in Kinshasa, for example, we can learn a lot about that. From that, it's just enormous, and it's very hard city to live. But you come to someone's house and lives in a very poor area, and you can't call it a house. And you walk in, and you just get inspired by his talk about his how he works as a designer, and it's not that different. And of course, if they have more money, we will know more about their talent. But the talent is there, and we get inspired all the time. So,
if you talk to people there, do you feel in talking with them that they share the sort of the statistical analysis of their city, that they're booming and that they're about to grow?
No.
Or is that something that's really out of their horizon, and they really focus on what they do? Or do they really feel the growth they're in?
What do you think? That's, of course, for every city is maybe different. In Kinshasa, what I can tell you is that maybe they don't feel it in that way, but they feel they have hope. And they open doors because they're tired of telling stories about their problems. They are finally, it's like, okay, finally you're interested in me and in my talent and in my creativity. And that shows also, and then it opened doors and they show their lives. The question was a bit different, but I think it's hard to say that if every city... Did they also?
Yeah, I think in Yangon, for instance, they really felt that there was something going on and that it was growing very fast, because we met a painter, a woman, and she told us that she was a strange lady. She's called Nan. You have to look at her story in the web documentary. She was a painter, and she suddenly started to sell her paintings to hotels, because there were a lot of hotels opening, and they all want decoration. And they found her, and they thought, oh, she's nice, and they paid a lot of money because they are international hotels. And she was living with her mother, and she wasn't married, and she had a kid, and that was really not the way of living her mother had in mind for her. So she said, oh, well, I recently bought my own apartment, and I will show you. And we went with her to the apartment, and she showed us, and she told us, it cost $1 million. Pardon? $1 million?
A simple place.
It was a simple place, three bedroom apartments. A 3-room apartment. And so she was really into the growth of Yangon and
Is she raised that money herself, or how did you?
Yeah, okay. By selling her paintings. Yeah.
That's cultural entrepreneurial spirit right there. Anyone a question for Stephanie and Yvonne maybe? Yes, the dancer on the first row.
Hi. You mentioned in the beginning that you had all these numbers, and that you're trying to show the reality behind those numbers, but you didn't show us the numbers. So I'm just wondering, where do they come together? Do you have to go to the website to see those, or what?
Yeah, there are in the web documentary. There are numbers, but we, for instance, there are numbers about the growth of the economy, which is for almost 10 years above 10%. And so we take that as a starting point, more or less. And there are also statistics on the number of inhabitants in Addis and the growth of the population, and it is going to triple in the next 20 years. But we take that as a starting point, and from there we look for the stories and see what's behind those numbers.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we really chose to make the stories about the people. So what Stephanie says is a starting point, but we're telling the stories of the people.
And when you're really interested, there are graphics and statistics as well in a second layer behind the personal stories.
So visit the website. Yes. Yeah.
Hi. You mentioned before that gastronomy, for example, is bringing social change in Lima, or fashion in Kinshasa. That comes from the people, right? Do you see authorities in those cities also supporting these kind of initiatives by, I don't know, founding or giving locations where people can practice fashion, for example, in Kinshasa?
Well, in Kinshasa, there is none. So you see the difference. Where it comes from, how do you say that, from down?
Yeah, from bottom up.
Bottom up, yes, from bottom up. And then you need the authorities to really let it flourish. In Kinshasa, it doesn't. In Lima, example, it does. In Medellin, it does. So you see also that these cities are more successful at this moment. And in Addis Ababa, it doesn't. I mean, it works against it. So it's in every city, it's different.
Yeah, and I think there's a tipping point as well, because in what you see in Lima, for instance, is that it became very big, and the gastronomy, and the authorities and also the commercial organizations saw that there was profit in it. And the authorities saw, the government saw, that when they are going to help it, that it will attract more tourists. And then there was a tipping point, and that they, oh whoa, we're going to be involved in this scene, and we're going to help the chefs and the people. And they are funding right now a social cooking school, but it first has to have a lot of success, and then the government comes in. What we saw in all the cities is that it comes from bottom up. There it starts from the people.
From bottom up, yeah. And yes, the best thing is that it also the government is then recognizing it.
Yeah. What was the theme in Yangon? I don't know if you mentioned earlier, because we had.
It's art.
Art. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, might have missed that. because we're going to sort of reflect on the overall project at the end, the 3.5 years it took. But for now, I'd like to thank you, Yvonne and Stephanie, and then we'll go to the political/cultural discussion. But thanks for now. I'd like to invite back on stage Minishu and Jan Abbink. Please join me. If it's correct, you both have a microphone.
Yes.
Jan, I'm going to pour you a drink. Jan, I've introduced you as a professor at the University of Leiden. Can you talk a bit more about your day-to-day work, your research areas, stuff like that?
Yeah, well, I'm an anthropologist, historian, and I must admit I didn't work in Addis Ababa. I didn't do any research there.
Okay.
Except on one thing, which I'll tell you later. My main job is to research agro-pastoralist farmers in southwest Ethiopia, one of the more marginal areas of the country, which also happens to be now one of the most cherished and most sought-after countries, parts of the country. Just bordering Sudan and Kenya, this corner. And it was one of the remotest areas of Ethiopia. You know, primitive people lived there in the view of the highland people. No economy to speak of, nothing to get there except, you know, some cattle and maybe some gold, but not much. But now, you know, this area is completely overturned, literally turned over by, you know, foreign companies and also state companies, mainly state companies, state enterprises, getting land for large-scale commercial agriculture.
Okay.
So in let's say my area, the area of the people I studied, the Suri and the Dizi people and the Me'en people, you know, they have turned 180,000 hectares already in a big sugar plantation, and they're going to double it in the coming years.
Okay. Before we go into that a bit deeper, the sort of the route for the coming half hour is we're going to first talk about political, social, cultural developments with Jan. Then we go to the musical scene of Addis Ababa with Minishu. You told me over dinner that you really like to focus on that, and you're not comfortable talking about the political developments. Well, that's perfectly fine. And in the middle we have
because I don't know anything about politics.
yeah. But Jan, do you recognize the overall picture that's being drawn about Addis Ababa and Ethiopia in general tonight?
Yes. Well, yeah, certainly.
The booming developments, I mean.
Absolutely. It's very visible. It's visible in the spirit and the attitude of the people, in the changing labor patterns, you know, in the changing ambitions of people.
What are the changing labor patterns to really...
Well, you know, many more people move into salaried jobs. Many more people move into entrepreneurship.
From being a farmer to salary jobs.
From being semi-employed or unemployed or coming in, you know, in the cities. As you know, Addis Ababa is now the city #1 in Africa in terms of the urbanization rate. It's the fastest urbanizing city in Africa.
How many people live there?
It used to have very low rates in the time of Haile Selassie, the emperor, and the Derg, you know, the up to 91. And also in the first decade of the new regime, but now it's extremely accelerating. So many people moving out of the country.
How many inhabitants would it have now at the moment?
Well, I didn't check the figures. I'm not sure if there are accurate figures on Addis, but I think it's about 5.5 million now, 5 to 6 million.
4.5 million.
You mean officially? Officially? No, you know, really, it's much more. Also, the census of 2007, you know, it had 2.6 million.
Yeah.
Already then, experts said, my colleagues at the University of Addis Ababa, they said, no way, this is not true. It's much more.
Okay.
So you have the official figure, like many things in Ethiopia. We have the surface.
Please leave the microphone.
And we have the work.
Please talk to the microphone, otherwise we can't hear you. Jan, sorry. Please talk into the microphone.
Oh yeah. So So we have the official story and we have the informal story, like many things in Ethiopia.
Okay. So there's this huge dynamics. There's a lot of people moving to Addis Ababa. Who would you say are the main beneficiaries of these developments? Is it sort of evenly distributed, as we might like to hear? Maybe in
that's a question. You know, you can only have one answer. Well, there is let's say, the emerging elite, the political elite, and its affiliates, economic elites are emerging. But there is also really a growing middle class, no doubt about it. There is more people who move into the lower middle class and who get jobs, either state-supported or on their own. The private sector is developing, but is still way behind compared to other urban settings in Africa, but it's emerging. And many people from the countryside get employed in the construction business, in all kinds of menial jobs. So across the board there is growth in all sectors, but there are also many people who don't get a job, tens of thousands of people, as you saw in the pictures, people living in the street. And many people moving out of Ethiopia. People who have lost their land, who can't get a job, who can't get education. Really, every year, tens of thousands go through Berbera in Somalia, through Djibouti, through other places, through Sudan, to other places, to greener pastures.
And eventually try to reach
Despite
Europe?
despite the economic boom. So there is something,
And if they go out of Ethiopia, where are they going to? Are they eventually heading for Europe, or is it...
Well, many go to the Middle East, many go to other African countries. There are many people in Uganda, in South Africa, in other areas of Africa. But, and a part, of course, in the US, that's the ideal. You go to the US, the land of opportunity still, in the mind of most people. And also a smaller proportion goes to Europe, and many go to the Middle East also, many,
Talking about this economic growth, there's still in the social-cultural arena, there's protests. Can you explain them?
Talking about these things, I feel a bit like a spoilsport, because we had a great story presented by Stephanie and Yvonne, really about these stories by people who show their incredible inventiveness, their resilience, their survival skills. It's fantastic, and to come with all kinds of background factors qualifying all this, it's a bit difficult. But I see that picture. It is. But what is portrayed in these people is very real, and it's very general. I mean, the self-confidence, as you have emphasized, Stephanie, among people, the pride, the belief in their own background and their own future, and it is absolutely there, and it reverberates across the city, certainly.
So people are very optimistic.
The way they deal with problems, with the things frustrating them is admirable. This is something we can learn a lot about.
How do they do
They rely on
it?
themselves. They don't rely on a government.
Okay.
No, you cannot rely on a government. No way. I mean, politics is a high-risk game. If you if to enter there and to depend on the Kabyle, on the local authority. My God, you need the patience of an elephant to get things done there. So they rely on themselves, and this is extremely admirable in urbanites in Addis. And
that's where also the communities kicks in. The neighbors who are like family.
Sociality,
really
community feeling, sociality, family. You mentioned music as one of the key elements to recover the DNA and the spirit of the Ethiopians, of the Addis Ababans. But it's also religion, of course. Religious commitment, religious life is very strong and very often very warm, but also it can also be problematic in its excessive sound production, as we heard, of mosques and churches. That is, but and there is also food, the food culture, the exchange of food, the production of food, the preparation of food. These three pillars of Ethiopian life are still very important and give the people strength and force to believe in themselves.
As a final topic, there's the ambition to become a middle-income country by 2025 already.
Yeah.
Do you feel that's realistic? What is a middle-income country?
Yeah, middle-income country. There is an official statistic, I think, by the UN. You have the upper middle income and the lower middle income, and the middle income means the per capita net income or income of wage earners should be between, I think, in the lower middle income, it's from $1,005 to $3,600 per year. That's the lower middle income. So that probably Ethiopia may reach. Yeah. So, but that's still not much. And the problem is, it is very precarious. If you enter the category of middle income, lower income, lower middle income in Ethiopia, is very precarious. We have seen the enormous skyrocketing prices of housing, foodstuff. I mean, is really also very, very high. The birr is a very weak currency. So the entry into the middle class, which could be realized when the economic growth is going to be durable and going to be maintained on the 8 to 10% level, it could happen. But at the same time, the precariousness of remaining in that category is very, very big.
Okay. So, any questions maybe for Jan? Just a moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear more information about the economy and so on. What I heard when I heard all the stories about all those high-rise buildings coming up is, what is the basis of the economy? What are the companies that are producing? Let me say it just income, wealth, etc. Because only from offices for the people of the African Union that doesn't generate enough money to get jobs. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting question and also a long story. I mean, I think that World Bank and UN people who are doing all this constant reporting and advising of the government, and maybe too much even, they are saying that there is not enough productive economy. There is a strong agricultural base, of course. It's still coffee, it's cotton. Gold has been coming up as an export product. But these are minerals, these are not productive baseline economic sectors, There is industrialization is still very in its infancy. There are industrial parks which have been opened, certainly, but these have been all planned from above, built in Mekelle, in the north, in Awassa, in Addis, in Kombolcha, and so forth, these medium-sized towns, where the government builds them with its enormous infrastructure investment program, which is very good, which is the main generator of GDP growth, infrastructure investments, with loans and grants from the international community, but also from domestic sources. But, the industrial outlays so far have not been able to pick up on really indigenous productive investments. Not yet.
Okay.
We are waiting on that.
So there's a challenge.
And then the private sector has to play a big role.
I thought I saw another finger. Yeah. Oh.
Well, my question is connected, but I wonder in what way and to what extent the government participates in the economic development.
Oh, yeah, Ethiopia is the prime example, together with Rwanda and maybe Tanzania and some other countries, but of a developmental state, a self-appointed developmental state. That's Ethiopia. The government is the main economic force in the Ethiopian economy. The state has about 50 to 55% of all the economic activity under its wing. If you would sort that out, this would be the figure. Parastatal companies, ministries, state plantations. I mentioned the sugar plantations, these huge, the dam building, all is state-directed, state-planned on the drawing board of the state in Addis Ababa in the ministries and implemented often by state companies. So, yeah, the airlines, yeah, but that's a successful one. It has a lot of autonomy, and that's a very big success. But it's state-owned, but it gives a lot of autonomy to the management of the company, to professionals. But the Ethiopian economy is dynamic, but how long will that go on? Before they really involve the private sector, both domestic as well as foreign, because that is still lacking a bit. And this is what the refrain which the World Bank and the UN organizations always say: please try to open up to the private sector. You can regulate the private sector, of course, you must do that, but give more dynamics and more durability in investments and in productive capacity to the private sector.
Okay, thanks a lot. We're going to make a switch to the musical scene. Before we do, we are going to take a look at a short video portrait of Henak, musician in Addis. Let's take a look and then we go to Minishu.
My name is Henak Tamaskan. I'm a musician, a bass player, and also a music educator. I was born in Addis, and I was here till I finished high school. Went to the States at around 1980. At that time, Ethiopia was a communist country, so it was a very bad time to be here. It was scary. A lot of people were being killed for no question. I had the opportunity to leave, so I did that, to go to study, to go abroad. All along that time, when I was studying and when I was working, I was also playing music. I was very lucky. Even before I went to school at Berkeley, when I was in DC and working, I was still traveling, touring in Europe and all over the world with a lot of famous Ethiopian musicians. And that supported me, and that helped me to do the jazz scene in New York City, which is very difficult to do. After 9/11, literally, things started slowing down. And then I found myself doing more here, something meaningful to teach and to play, and just to feel like I am contributing something. I think me and the musicians that came from abroad inspired and a lot of the other younger musicians also to study and come out and do some Ethio jazz stuff, at least Ethio jazz, if not jazz. So mix Ethiopian music with jazz. Jazamba School is a school that's very close to my heart. It's a really passion of mine. And the way it started is me and my friends, about 5 of us, we decided to create a school where we can prepare the musicians, the young guys, to become professional musicians. We wanted to also create an atmosphere where there's a good rapport or good friendship between the teachers and musicians. And that's very important because sometimes there's a gap, especially here. We wanted to create an atmosphere where we can help each other, learn from each other, play together, but also teach. And also we wanted to create a school where the teachers are professional musicians also. Some of the students are from groups and performing, some are teaching, and some have become quite famous, so a lot of good has come here. But the next step will be to take the Ethiopian music to the rest of the world. So that's been our also dream for us and for the musicians here in Addis and the students, all of them, to have musicians that could also be present in the international scene, not only in Ethiopia.
Minyeshu, do you still have a lot of connections with the musical scene in Addis Ababa?
More or less.
Yeah. You visit the city once every few years, or is it really friendly ties that you still connect with each other?
Yes, of course, because I need to have sometimes information, because sometimes you lose, some things, because when you live in the country for more than 20 years, I need to, I also read the books, of course, and Google, but especially with the musicians, I always talk about music and how and so forth.
What do you think are the special characteristics of Ethiopian music? What makes it so special?
I think it's one of the reasons is pentatonic scale. We have very special scales which called Anchoye, Bati, Ambasal, and Zeta. So that's the basically original Ethiopian scales, which so you have also in Mali and Senegal also pentatonic scales, but different way of going.
Can you maybe let us hear a bit? Because I don't have a...
Oh,
context.
It's not so easy, but...
yeah, sorry to put you on the spot like that, but I'm really wondering, because pentatonic scale doesn't say a lot to me, because I'm sort of illiterate. Okay, that's 5.
Yeah, that's kind of Anchoye. Is that. So it's most of the time for a European musician is weird in the beginning, but it's beautiful. It has more of soul in it, so that makes it different.
And you compose all your music in that scale, or do you also maybe switch to more European context?
No, because since I live here, I try to make it more opener for Western audience. That I mix the arrangements with Western sound, but the singing part, the melody part, stays still in pentatonic scale. When you hear or listen the music, you hear everything. You hear jazz, you hear pop, you hear soul. Everything you hear in the music, but the basically is always from the styles come from those tribes, because we have so many tribes, rich culture. I am blessed to use them, that I can use them. So many.
And you're free to use that. Of course, not free as in you're not allowed or something. But you in fact use the traditional origins of all these tribes. It's that open source. It's that easy to incorporate in your music.
Yes, for me, yes. For me, is even also as a person, I feel always that I am all these tribes.
Yeah.
Yes, and I don't know. I can't do anything else. I can't sing just pop and then full of album. I can't do that. It's just me. I grew up in this way of cultural, national theater. Yeah. So it stays in me. This is, for me. Even the costumes I wear, even the hair I'm doing on the stage must have meaning where I come from, meaning who I am. So
it's really part of the message,
yes.
Part of the overall. Yeah. Are there
are
there specific choices you made for your appearance tonight? If you talk about the message you'd like to communicate.
Yes? How I look. I mix them, it doesn't have to be a typical Ethiopian clothes or material or something. But for me, is the day I feel is it's like I wear this one come from Ethiopia, this one is from another African people. Work this one, they sell it here like €5 per things, and I love to present it, and this is like from typical Ethiopian thing, and this is how we do in a lot of tribes in Ethiopia, but the whole world actually in this time, not only Africa, but as a fashion we do it, European do it, and everybody. So I feel like I'm world.
Yeah. Any questions maybe for Initial? Do you feel that the economic growth in Ethiopia really benefits the cultural scene? Do you really feel that because there's so much dynamics going on, it's not just economical, but there's also a vibe in the musical scene going on?
Can you repeat that?
Well, we've just understood from Jan that there's tremendous economic growth going on. Earlier, Stephanie and Yvonne highlighted that. Do you feel there's a strong connection between that economical growth and the culture or creative sector? Is there a boost going on there as well that has a connection to that economic?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't feel that because I live here. I can't talk for the other people who are living there. Because music has been always important in our lives in Ethiopia. It doesn't matter which regime or dictator or whatever it is, still it's going on. The music is very important in our lives.
What is the scene like? Are there specific places where people meet? You really have Vendika, of course, the nightclub where there's a lot of interesting things happening. Does Addis have enough of these people where people can interact and meet to make great music? Does it just happen on the streets? How does it go?
Yes, it is. I mean, Vendika is most of the time for the tourists and for people who are, has enough money to go there. But, music is everywhere in Ethiopia. We have weddings, we have, as you said, with the religions, very strict religions, and we have like Gabriel Day, like Maria Day, or this kind of holidays. We don't need, reason to dance, to sing. It's every day, every corner, it's music.
Okay, so it's not particularly sort of a performance where you buy a ticket and you go see a musician. It's really everywhere. Okay.
No, not only.
Jan, yes, please.
I'm not sure if Vendika is really for tourists. I mean, it's really more for the Addis Ababan people, for even the lower income people. It's very, very. It's popular, folkloric. There are sometimes tourists, but tourists mainly come to to all those restaurants. Even from Hilton down to Yort Abyssinia restaurant, for example, where you have house bands and a lot of interesting cultural hybrids music being performed. There, tourists mainly come. But there are also, and that is characteristic of Addis Ababa, there are also many popular clubs who are for 80, 90%, 95% visited by local people, combined with restaurant, combined with joining in with Asmari and so forth, or with singing. This is what makes it such an enormously comprehensive music scene of all kinds of varieties.
Okay.
Yes, but what I know is also, of course, the people are the local people who has money. But the people who can afford it,
but local context, Vendika is considered to be quite an expensive club.
It is. I mean, when you compare with the economy, when you compare with the rest of, yes. But what I mean is, it's not about expensive or something. What I mean is, music is every corner. Music is everywhere in the house. You don't need any reason to make music, But people from outside, of course, you don't go to really local houses. That's what we see on TV or what we see from outside. But there are really inside, are rich.
Are Ethiopian musicians like you also spreading around the world? Is there a sort of a scene maybe in Amsterdam where I'm not aware of, or in other cities in Europe where there's interesting things happening? Sort of a forefront of the people who are about to conquer the world and that overall...
musicians who are living in
yes,
Addis, you mean?
Who live in Amsterdam or in other cities, who meet up and also exchange their musical inspiration.
It's for me hard to say because I can talk about me.
Yes, please do.
Yes, I am trying to. I'm doing this since I am here. I know it's not easy. I'm singing in Amharic and nobody understands it. But I worked hard. I still working hard, and I'm proud what I am. But sadly, I don't know anybody here who is in the same category or the same. I do. Okay. I wish there are more.
No, of course, yeah. Final check if there's questions for Minyeshu. If not, then I'd like to thank you a lot for your earlier performance and joining us for the panel discussion. Of course, Jan Abink as well. Thanks a lot for joining us. We're about to conclude tonight, but not before we have a small chat with Yvonne and Stephanie again, as a reflection on tonight and also the overall project. Because we've heard earlier it's 3.5 years, right? How long did you plan the project to last in the beginning when you started out?
6 cities in 1 year.
Ah, okay. It has become 5 in 3.5.
Yes.
What was the 6th city? The remaining?
I don't know. We changed it quite quickly to 5.
Ulaanbaatar.
Yeah, Tehran as well.
Yeah, we had some extra ones, but not the final 6.
But that raises the question, of course, to future plans. Are there future plans for similar projects, new cities? There's a whole world to be journalized by you. Are you going to do it?
We already mentioned the McKinsey list, and there are 600 cities on that list. So we have a long way to go, I think, when we want to cover all of them. But on the other hand, the media we're working for do not have enough money to cover the costs of a project like this.
What's the media you work for?
Trouw and Volkskrant, and international for El País, Le Monde, and we worked for an American site about cities, which is called Cityscope.
Okay.
And but they don't have enough money to cover all the costs for traveling, etc., and to build a platform. Mm-hmm. So we depend on funding from and grants. And we had enough money for 5, and now it's done, and we're looking for new funding and new plans and new. Yeah, we are discussing 2 things. Do we have to go back to the cities where we've been to and see what has happened in 5 years, for example, and what has happened to Lewison, the fashion designer in Kinshasa, or are we going to do more cities? So that, we are going to have a city break, I think, the coming month, and then we're going to discuss what we are going to do. One of these 2 plans.
Rural holiday.
What's next? Yes.
So okay. When do you want to have that decision made? Is there a sort of an ultimate date where you want to know what you're going to do?
No, we have already a lot of plans, also besides the cities.
Okay.
But the thing is that we're not done with the subject. It's too interesting, and we can continue. We both feel that, I think. It needs a new house. So we have this web doc. And that's finished, and we're looking for like a new way of telling these stories. But the subject it keeps interesting. And also, what we did last year, we had an exhibition in Quito together with the United Nations, and that was with the Habitat Conference. And what we did is we brought people to Quito. Some of our protagonists from these cities, we brought them to Quito. And we had lectures and presentations with them. And that's what we really aiming for, to have a big exhibition next year, to sit here. And but
surrounded by,
or maybe they sit
the wonderful
here
characters you've
there.
met. Yes, of course. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, wish you all the luck with your future plans. We might see each other again. Yvonne Brandwijk and Stephanie Bakker. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thanks also to everybody who joined us tonight. We have a few things we'd like to share with you. These, of course, very important. futurecities.nl/en for the URL. Make sure you visit it. It's wonderful stuff you can see, not only about Addis Ababa, of course, but also for the other cities we've mentioned tonight. But there's a few other things taking place in Pakhuis and Zwijger these coming months that I'd like to highlight. Some upcoming events. Waiting for the slide to arrive, but there's the We Make the City Festival. Ah, there it is. The festival that makes cities better. Well, a nice connection to the talk of tonight. Make sure you block it in your agenda. End of June, as you see. Nice international lineup, so be sure to check that out. And some other upcoming events. There's plenty of interesting stuff taking place basically every night. So Dimfy browsed through everything that's happening. But before, I'd like to say that, well, as you know, our programs are for free and that they will remain for free. But if you feel like there's a quality here that, could use some funding, please know that you can do that quite simply via Ideal. So if you feel like that, please do. These are some programs. The Dutch Masters 23rd edition is going to be very special. I've been told May 29. So that's going to be good stuff. The Human, the movie, I don't know if people have been there before, but it's going to be rescheduled time and time again because people simply love it, and other evenings. So please take a quick check, and otherwise make sure you visit the website of the Zwijger. Then let's go for drink downstairs. There's Ethiopian beer, Habesha Bira. Habesha Bira. Yes, I've seen the commercials. So yes. So please go for a drink downstairs and see you there. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.